Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, it is I am the one and only Proto Man here, and once again, I am back for the likes of the Mexi Toys videos. And ladies and gentlemen, in addition to able to welcome back to you guys by the forms of the Mega Man Marathon 2, but also welcome back for more of Let's Play of Mega Man 2 for the Game Boy. So, last time, we did manage to able to swipe up every single Robot Masters based off from Mega Man 2, or to be more specifically, the last half of those Robot Masters from Mega Man 2 for the NES, beating the buddy forms of Metal Man, Woodman, Airman, and lastly Crash Man, despite the fact that in this game for some reason calls him Clash Man for some reason. But today, this will be the finale in terms of the forms of Mega Man 2 for the Game Boy, and because of that though, since that we ended up on the forms of the Dr. Wily's teleport system, so this means about the fact that, well, we can able to actually experience a new selections of levels, apparently. So in this case though, we're able to actually get this thing to it, shall we? So, wait a second, are those bead-like enemies do look familiar to you? Well, I can appreciate it because obviously that since after all we've already managed to take it down the final, or what's this? It appears to be like the exact same munching obstacle from the likes of, wait a second, is that appears to be very similar to the forms of Hardman from the likes of Mega Man 3? Why yes, of course it is. Well, because here's the thing though, is the fact that relatively speaking, before we dive right into the forms of the actual Robot Masters themselves, we have to go for the entire level first this time around, as opposed to the ones in Dr. Wily's Revenge. That basically is the fact that, relatively speaking, if you go onto these little teleportating ports, or these little paths rather, basically you can able to actually fight against with those Robot Masters respectively. Whilst in here though, you have to simply get able to complete the entire level first before you're able to actually dive right into the actual the Robot Masters themselves. So, I think relatively speaking, it's just the fact the matter is though, is that I honestly have no words to say. Although, I apologize for that particular very ear-grating music because, well, I just need able to adjust the actual volume, so that way you can able to still hear my commentary. But hopefully, whenever we get to the point until Mega Man 3 coming up on the Game Boy, which is specifically tomorrow, then obviously the sound mixing won't be nearly as bad as this. But, hopefully that should be a part of the deal. So, and since that about the fact that we were able to actually come across into that familiar Robot Masters based off of Mega Man 3 on the NES, so that also means is the fact that we have to do with the forms of an entirely different weakness chain, just like in the forms of how it does it from the likes of, you know what I mean, from the likes of Dr. Wily's Revenge, of course. So, but hopefully though, we're able to try to take care of those little jerk-off enemies, like they're just trying to toss those little, like, things at you, which I highly recommend you're able to do this, as soon as you're able to actually do not get hit so many times. But those enemies are actually based off from Mega Man 3 after all. So in this case though, and same applies to these little monkey-like robots, as you can see. But I will have to admit it though right away, is the fact that unlike the regular stages from earlier ago, that normally most of these levels are pretty short and quick. Whilst in here though, sometimes the level length for certain Mega Man 3 based levels are, not gonna lie, kind of lengthy, but regardless of such though, we did make it to the end. So in this case though, let's see what Robot Master we're gonna be faced off against first. So, in some cases anyway, here it is. Here's Hardman. So I was right all along. So, anyways, do you get the idea? Basically, just keep on shooting at him, and then you're gonna have to jump at the right time, because obviously, if he starts to able to actually cause an earthquake at you, basically, you might as well able to get stunned for a while. So, normally in Mega Man 3 on the NES, that normally his weakness was obviously magnet missile. But apparently, though, we don't have that yet, so hopefully we'll try to take him on with a simple Mega Buster. So, either way though, he's all in all pretty easy compared to the forms of how it does it on the console version of Hardman from the likes of Mega Man 3. So, that might be something worth noting for it. But anyway, and of course, we're able to actually still come across into ourselves the Hard Knuckle, so that means we can now able to actually use that specific weapon. And of course, every time whenever you beat those specific levels like this, we're able to actually thankfully get ourselves the password feature every time you beat those stages. Whilst unlike Mega Man Dr. Wily's Revenge, that for whatever reason, the password is only existent if you complete the entire stage itself. So relatively speaking, also that Mega Man 2 might able to actually have quite more levels than the forms of how it does it in Mega Man Dr. Wily's Revenge. Because despite the fact that Mega Man Dr. Wily's Revenge only has like 6 levels total, whilst in this game this time around though is actually now going to be compromised within, I would classify for saying, about 9 or so levels. Well, to be more specifically, if you want to decide able to count those mini stage variations of the Dr. Wily's fortresses and stuff like that. But ultimately though is the fact that, well, it might be hard to able to classify for noticing this because it's been about, you know, a couple of hours since I actually did manage to did my commentary on this after yesterday. So yeah, you might be able to actually just expect this much. So yeah, today's day is of course the 4th of August today, in this case in 2022 today. So something's worth mentioning for the sake of time is the fact that until tomorrow anyway, that the Rio 2016 Summer Olympics, to be more specifically with that particular, a mixed bag Summer Olympics, although don't get me wrong, I still enjoy it back in the day, but because of the forms of the actual Ziggy virus out there back in the day, and also not to mention though is the fact that, well, it's hard to explain for other details, but apparently that particular Rio 2016 Summer Olympic Games in reality is going to be officially become 6 years old. So yeah, I can't even believe it's been 6 years since, well, Rio 2016 exists on the actual Summer Olympic Games and stuff like that, which is always swell. Especially noticeable, I still managed to enjoy that time back in the day. Well, mind you, I didn't exist yet, so because of that though, well, apparently Mega Man told me for this, so anyways. And, also, unfortunately though, is the fact that today's day is the moment where I really hate by saying this, but for those of you who lived in the UK, well, unhappy birthday to the Emoji Movie. Oh, that film sucks still. Especially after 5 years of the film's release, it still sucks, and it's so bad. And not to mention though, why does that film ever exist? Like, literally, why the hell does that film ever exist? Like, I know for the fact that we keep saying this, but it bears repeating, that, usually that film sucks to me, because, well, I just felt a bit snorefest, and on top of all that stuff though, there was no way I'm not gonna able to actually rewatch that film ever again, not only on Sky Cinema for Sky Q, but also about the fact that I'm not gonna get it on DVD or Blu-ray because, well, it's not worth it, so... Anyway, so let's go ahead and take on the forms of the next Robot Master from Mega Man 3. This appears to be, of course, Needle Man. So hopefully we'll able to take him down with a bit of a different weapon this time, because normally we're supposed to able to actually use Gemini Laser from the Mega Man 3 game on the NES. Whilst in this game this time around though, his weakness is pretty different, despite the fact that I've almost wasted my weapon ammo. But apparently I did manage to use the air shooter, so that way it deals quite a bit of damage to Needle Man. So there he goes. And of course we will be able to actually get ourselves the needle shot. So hopefully we will be able to actually use that for certain occasions. So, or in this case, needle cannon, as far as this is usually calls it. So I keep thinking about another weapon for some reason. But anyways, let's move on to the next Robot Master stage. And this time we're going to be able to go to the bottom left. In this case though, this is going to take place in, I would say, Magnet Man. So, because I see abundance of magnets up in the skies above. And of course, just like the forms of how it does it from the likes of, you know, Mega Man 3 on the NES, that basically does the fact that we will able to come across into ourselves those, a whole bunch of magnet, mechanics throughout. So, that might be something worth noting for, but, anywho. And, also, sadly though, also is the fact that we've only got about 25 days left until this unfortunate news for the sake of the forms of not only for the Wii U owners, but also the 3DS owners as well. Which, you probably already know why exactly I was about to explain this. And I'm sure that, Jewel will be able to actually mention more about it until when she goes on to Mega Man The Wily Wars, until by the very end of the month. So, that might be, something to need to be more discussed with. So, Anyway, so let's go and... Oh, jeez, I keep on just getting wrecked all of a sudden by those, you know, those little weird enemies like these. But hopefully, though, we will able to actually just still survive for the entirety of the stages no matter what, though. So hopefully that should be the case for the sake of time. So anyways, let's go ahead and go for these little, like, I wanted to say buddy forms of those magnet machines or something. Even though, mind you, he has been, you know, like I said, since a couple of hours since I actually did manage to able to last play this. So ever since during the course of yesterday, of course. So, and of course, still disappearing platforms to exist, but for some reason, in this particular game, this time around, though, is the fact that, well, they've somehow now becomes like a thinner platform. Well, mind you, it's pretty much exactly identical to the likes of Dr. Wily's Revenge in the final stage on that game. So, at the very least, we still need able to actually go for this stuff. Unless, if we decide to able to actually use Rush Coil or Rush Jet, my personal favorite, so that way we can able to skip this entire portion. So yeah, in your face disappearing platforms, because seriously, I just really love Rush Jet in this game, along with Mega Man 3 on the NES. So yeah, that's obviously pretty swell. So anyways, let's go ahead and continue things on here. Just be careful not to able to get hit by those spikes, because obviously it kills you. And let's grab another energy tank, so that way we're able to be completely all settled for the sake of the forms of those energy tanks to spare. So that way she'll do the job. So anyway, so let's go ahead and climb up the ladder, and hopefully we will be able to actually, after dealing with this particular enemy right here, while trying to dodge that particular homing missile that was about to be able to home in on me. But regardless of such, though, we're able to try to accept that. So anyways, let's go ahead and use the this particular needle cannon, or the cannon weapon. Because normally on Mega Man 3 on the NES, though, that's the only way you can able to deal with Magnet Man's weakness. It was Spark Shock. I think that's what it's called anyway. But somehow it's changed in this particular installment. So because of that, though, now the Needle Cannon is now the actual the weakness, or the actual powerful, effective weapon against with Magnet Man, I should say. I do apologize for that particular commentary itself, gets a bit, I don't know, muffled up at points, but let's face it, it's just the fact that we've almost nearly at the end of Mega Man 2 for the Game Boy, so that probably explains it. So anyways, now we actually got ourselves the Magnet Missile, so that way we can able to actually just to use that for the last Robot Master to able to take on, based off of Mega Man 3 for the NES, and this stage might be familiar to you because from the actual aesthetics and all that stuff, you know exactly what the next Robot Master we're going to be face off against next, which is of course Top Man. So yeah, that probably explains it. So anyways, let's go ahead and use the Rush Marine, so that way we can able to actually skip this entirety of not only for its underwater section, but also with those disappearing platforms. So yeah, that pretty much explains for the sake of time. So anyways, let's go ahead and just, you know, keep on sliding sometimes, so just in case we can able to get ourselves a bit of a faster pace here and there. But despite the fact I just got myself my bit of a knockback going on right there, and there's that familiar cat robot, we can able to still take him down by we were expecting if we were able to use other weapons in general, but I always attempt to try to take care of the forms of those mini bosses by simply using the Mega Buster. But until eventually in Mega Man 3 for the Game Boy and onwards for the Game Boy installments, thankfully we were able to come across into ourselves the charged Mega Buster. So because of that, though, that will be, that'll be a much more effective and all that stuff. So anyways, let's grab another extra life. So that means we are pretty much maxed out for the sake of the forms of our 9 lives counter. So yeah, pretty generous all in all. Despite I did manage to come across into quite a few deaths from earlier, from the likes of the forms of not only let's just say Woodman stage, because of the forms of that gosh darn knockback, or not just by the forms of the knockback, but to be more specifically with that cannon shot for that particular cannon turret, and also with the forms of which specific level I was thinking of. Oh, there's another energy tank right down there. Although I wasn't expecting to pick it up, but Unfortunately though, we can't carry up to like, even more of them. So I'm just gonna use it anyway and grab a new one just in case. So thankfully we're able to go back into it. All 4 of those energy tanks storage. So that seems totally obvious. So anyways, let's go ahead and keep moving. So just in case we can able to just not only take care of more enemies, but also I get this strong sense of feeling. Although luckily though, much like the forms of how it does it on, well, certain stages, to be more specifically, whenever we get into Mega Man 3 for the Game Boy, that particular top spin like enemy, like as we've already defeated those guys. Thankfully, if you try to get rid of the forms of that particular spinning top arm as projectiles, basically you can able to actually get either a random item pickups like you know, health pickups, or weapon refuel energy, or especially noticeable with the forms of rare occasions extra lives in some cases. But anyways, I think we are settled for this point right here. So I think let's go ahead and take care of the forms of the final Robot Master before we take on, well, Dr. Wily himself again. And it looks like we're about to be faced off against with Top Man, because, well, relatively speaking, that his weakness is obviously Hard Knuckle. So, because I was expecting that, I believe maybe Daffy Duck didn't do it for its true weakness for the likes of Top Man, because as far as I'm aware, that's all he does, he's just managed able to use Needle Cannon instead of Hard Knuckle, which I will say Hard Knuckle is definitely more effective. So, at the very least, that might be something need to classify that. So, and of course, we got ourselves a pretty useless top spin, but regardless of such though, thankfully we don't need to use it as much. So, anyway, so once you beat 4 of those levels, we can able to head down here, and what the hell is this guy? And he's got himself a bit of a pogo stick for some reason. This, ladies and gentlemen, this appears to be the actual introduction to his name is Quint. And basically, all he's really using is usually calls it Shaku Jarin, which is basically it's like a kind of a similar thing as the pogo stick. And then basically, this boss is probably the easiest in the game, because basically all he does, he just likes to hop around and stays for a moment, and then basically it's up to you to use the Mega Buster to able to keep shooting at him, and that's it. That's literally how this boss plays. It's that easy. So, and it's also pretty easy to dodge as well. So, in this case, we do have ourselves, you got the Quint item, which is Sakaru Gagarin. So, yeah, that might be something worth noting for that particular weapon that we've got after dealing with the forms of Quint. So, oh jeez, it looks like we're going to outer space again, just like in Dr. Wily's Revenge, except now with a different ship model. So, yeah, let's go ahead and anyway, to take care of Dr. Wily himself once and for all, again. Except this time, it's got a lot of clocks surrounding it. I'm guessing it's like time travel aspect, but I have no much to say about this, because, well, relatively speaking, we're now onto the final stage in Mega Man 2 for the Game Boy, so, oh, that's just great. We got ourselves disappearing platforms from the very get-go, so what's the point of able to actually introduce those things to begin with? Although, regardless of such though, this is the end game basically, so we can able to expect it able to go through tough obstacles here and there, but regardless of such though, we'll have to stick around with it, so. Anyways, let's go and climb up the ladder. So, I will have to admit though, right away, I do really like the aesthetics about this stage, because it almost kind of reminds me that you're able to travel through time or something like that. Although, mind you though, that was before when, well, let's just say Mega Man powered up for the PSP. They do manage to able to get a Robot Master based off from time and stuff like that, called Time Man. So, I'm sure that we will be able to actually sort that particular Let's Play up for Mega Man powered up in the future. To be more specifically when it gets to 2023, or something like that, depending on the forms of certain situations we're about to be going on, so. But we'll see what happens there. So anyways, let's use the Rush Marine to able to actually skip this entire chasm with that particular bottomless pit with water and all that stuff, which that will be mandatory by the way in order to progress, so. Anyway, so I think we should be alright for the sake of the forms we're trying to tackle for this entire stage in general, because, well, despite the fact that I just almost caught off guard by the forms of that monkey-like robot, but that's okay, because we could just simply use the metal blade, so that way we can able to deal with the rest of the entirety of the entire level will be a I'm not gonna lie, a total cakewalk, assuming if you're able to come across into some annoying obstacles like, you know, disappearing platforms, as well as instant death spikes if you dare touch it, and as a result though, there's not much else to say, so... And whatever I did manage able to look back on the forms of that very, very miserable, you know, the worst film I've ever experienced in 2017, the Emoji Movie, and it still sucks, like I said, because, well, it's so unimaginative, and it's also very forgettable too. Plus, it does have a lot of emphasis on pop culture references, and also not to mention though, product placements, which, whoever needs product placements, it's so unnecessary. So anyway, let's go ahead and use the metal blade again, so that way we can able to... Well, for some reason we got a little bit of health, but that's okay, because we can just simply use one of our energy tanks until we decided able to take on, well, suffice to say, the final boss in Mega Man 2. So in this case, let's go ahead and take on the forms of Dr. Wily himself with a different machine or something like that. Although, technically speaking, this machine is usually still calls it Wily Machine 2. So in this case, this particular battle has 3 phases. Like, the first phase, all you have to do is basically we have to be able to use Shakugarin for the sake of the forms of one of those Quint items that we actually used earlier. That way, we'll deal quite a bit of damage to the forms of Wily Machine 2, and then if you think you're about to be running out of that particular weapon ammo, basically though is the fact that I highly suggest you're able to actually use the Mega Buster as well, assuming if you're able to try to do with well-timing shots and all that stuff, so that way it'll do quite decent amount of damage. And then if you're done with the first phase, we now moved on to the second phase, which basically he's now able to actually utilize the forms of the actual machine with wheels this time. So I guess that makes it totally obvious for the sake of the actual transition. So I've almost got it able to actually just somehow lose a life all of a sudden, but thankfully with energy tanks with it, that means that the entire boss fight, well, it might be pretty tricky on most parts, but ultimately though, he might be pretty darn easy. So, and if you're done with the forms of the second phase, here we are on to the third and final phase. That basically all you have to do is basically just have to able to once again time your shots against with the forms of that glass dome with Dr. Wily, and then basically that's all you really have to do. In fact, the third and final phase is actually overall very easy by comparison, because although the only time is incredibly difficult though, is to try to dodge those very annoying bullet bill like enemies and stuff like that. But apart from those side of things though, that was it. That's the forms of Mega Man 2 for the Game Boy. That's super short for the final level. Even though it's certainly way more shorter than the forms of how it does it from the likes of Mega Man Dr. Wily's Revenge, because usually Dr. Wily's Revenge, despite it's kind of lengthy and it's also like a goblet of any sort, but at the very least though is the fact that the entire final boss in the previous game is also kind of easy as well if you manage to know what you're doing. And of course a direct shot for that particular missile thing for Mega Man. And there goes Dr. Wily to somehow explode back into Earth, apparently. And that was pretty much about it for the likes of Mega Man 2 for the Game Boy. So let's give my final thoughts of Mega Man 2 for the Game Boy, speaking of which. I found it was a really good game, I'm not gonna lie. Although for some reason, like I said since Junior Forms of in yesterday's video, that for some reason most people seem to don't really care for Mega Man 2 on the Game Boy as much as anyone else does. But regardless of such though, I think it certainly is a really damn good game. It does have some issues, sure, most notably because the forms of the Quint boss fight is actually really darn easy. And also, I found the soundtrack was nothing remarkable per se, but I will say that it does sound almost exactly like an 8-bit kind of like, I don't know what you would call it, but I digress. So yeah, you probably get the idea of how the fact that this is going. So the visuals, while it still looks exactly like the forms of how it does it in Mega Man Dr. Wily's Revenge, but apart from those side things though, that's as far as I can honestly try to explain about the forms of Mega Man 2 for the Game Boy. Although sure, much like the forms of Mega Man Dr. Wily's Revenge, that this game is also very short because, well, relatively speaking, it's just the fact of the matter is though, is that we were able to come across into some small amount of levels for the sake of the forms of the final portion of the game or something like that. But it doesn't bother me too much, must say. So, yeah, in this particular credit sequence, much like the forms of Dr. Wily's Revenge, that basically it shows us the forms of the enemy roll call, and not to mention though, until eventually they'll show us some of those robot masters based off from Mega Man 2 and Mega Man 3, and eventually Quint and all that stuff. So yeah, that might be something worth knowing for PP. Okay, that's what the bird-like enemy types of names they are known as. Shotman. Okay, that's an interesting name for the sake of that particular Flyboy. Huh. Alright. Bit of a weird names as far as this is concerned. All Springers. Okay, so that's what their names are. Okay. I might have to do a massive research on the forms of those specific enemies for the sake of the forms of certain Mega Man games for sure in the future, so that way I can able to memorize it. And there's those mole drill stuff ever since that the last time we saw those was in, you know what I mean, Mega Man Dr. Wily's Revenge on the final few stages, or should I say, the final 2 stages in the previous game, so, but I digress. So I guess there's not much else I can talk about for the sake of the forms of Mega Man 2 for the Game Boy. It's just that I usually enjoyed that for quite a few bits and bobs here and there. But relatively speaking, because I always still enjoy utilizing the forms of Rush Jet from the likes of the same thing that happened from the likes of Mega Man 3 for the NES, because obviously you can move anywhere you go and all that stuff. And yeah, that's as far as I can think about it. And also, I really do still enjoy utilizing the forms of the actual sliding feature, so that way you can able to actually just walk around in a bit of a faster pace and stuff like that. Although, it will continue that tradition whenever we move on to Mega Man 3 for the Game Boy, and same applies to Mega Man 4 for the Game Boy, and eventually Mega Man 5 for the Game Boy. So yeah, you probably get the idea from that specific topic worth noting for, but I've no idea why he's saying that word so many times though, because honestly guys, that's as far as I can honestly try to say about this as far as the forms of the entire Let's Play of Mega Man 2 for the Game Boy, and same applies to the forms of other discussions I would like to discuss, because, well, I'm sure that most other toys will be able to actually mention more details in the future. To be more specifically, whenever we move on to the next game of this entire marathon, which I think I'll explain more details about this as soon as this particular credit sequence is finished. Although, the only noticeable differences this time is the fact that I don't think they'll show us Mega Man is decided able to go for a bit of a stroll of a walk, and then basically he stumbled across the forms of those 2 different planets, which are the planet Earth as well as the forms of the moon. But instead of that, basically it shows us Mega Man's just, well, staring at the forms of the constellations, or stars, or planets, and you name the rest. So, in the fact that this particular credit sequence lasts a bit longer than the forms of how it does it on the Dr. Wily's Revenge game, that's for sure. But it doesn't bother me too much though, so thank you for playing. Presented by Capcom, of course, because obviously Capcom is the most awesome, you know, yeah, you know, with the actual, the thing itself, along with, Resident Evil, and Street Fighter, and you name the rest. So, anyway, so thank you guys so much for watching our Let's Play of Mega Man 2 for the Game Boy. So this is me, Proto Man, from the likes of the Maxi Toys, and, yeah, I suppose that's pretty much as far as I can say about this. So, up next, in terms of the forms of the Mega Man Marathon 2, and that is, of course, next up in the lineup is Mega Man 3, for the Game Boy. So yes, the 3rd Game Boy Mega Man game we're going to be tackling through next. And I believe Pac-Man is going to be able to tackle for that game next, so best of luck for him, because as far as I'm aware, I've heard some strange feelings about Mega Man 3 for the Game Boy, and I consider this to be kind of the 2nd hardest games to play through, so best of luck for him, I suppose. So yeah, see you guys then. See ya.